Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Views on the News.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carry moon drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? And tonight's panel of the wise and witty, scoured from around the planet, consists of Guy from Manchester. Hello, Guy. How the devil are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good, good. Tersia from South Africa. How the devil are you?
Good, good, good.
Good, good. And Dread Pirate Higgs from Canada. How the devil are you?
It's great to be scoured.
I was thinking scoured off the dregs, but
It's the planet that I've scoured, not you. Anyway, the news this week is I think you'll find it very interesting, because item number one is about Muslims in the UK, because there's been a recent study and it's found that about 50% of them are inbred. And the majority of children in the UK are, the majority of disabled children in the UK are born to Muslim parents.
yeah, this is a big problem.
It is.
It is a big problem. I mean, if you get my ex-wife used to work in special schools, and the percentage of Muslim pupils is greater than the population of Muslims would justify. So this is an ongoing problem. They will marry their cousins.
Yes.
And this is, I mean, they have all sorts of cultural reasons for doing that.
Sure.
It's not good news.
Yeah.
It's not good news for them, and it's not good news for the education system, which has the burden of, because special kids require quite a lot more attention and resources.
Yes, indeed. And it's not good for the NHS either.
No.
It's unfortunate that religiosity is taken to be culture.
Yes,
culture
I'm not
is one
sure.
thing, religiosity, I think, is another. So saying that there's cultural reasons as opposed to religious reasons is kind of mixing it up a bit.
Yeah, we were talking.
I don't think there's clear evidence that it's religion, because not all Muslim communities around the world do this, but in Pakistan they do it, and I think there is a more culture than religion. But
isn't it just a matter of orthodoxy? The degree of orthodoxy.
Well, if I can come in here, last week we were talking about the link between authoritarianism and belief systems such as evangelicalism in the USA. And research shows that there's a big correlation between people who over respect authority and who are devout believers. And in this particular case, this Muslim disabled children inbreeding case, it might be because the culture requires them to keep in the faith. There are horrendous penalties for apostasy to Islam, and one way of keeping within the faith is to arrange the marriages of your children.
Yeah.
So authoritarian parents control and consent to their children's activities, and this is where it comes from.
I'm not sure if their motivation is religious. I think their motivation might be financial, but I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to see some research about that, John.
Yeah. Well, of course, to find out, you just remove religion and see what remains, right?
Oh, right. We'll just click. But Dred, do you have the same problem in Canada, because there are Pakistani communities there?
Yes, actually, right here in Fort St. John, there's a high Hutterite community. So they keep to their own. They marry within their own faith. So yeah, it's a worldwide problem, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just confined to Muslims, but
That's, as you say, it's a worldwide problem. Immigrants tend not to integrate with the country's culture that they've immigrated to. Presumably they like it because they've come here, but then they don't want to be part of it. It's odd. And I can't pretend that we're any better because, of course, when we went round the world and colonized everywhere, we made little Englands wherever we went.
Of course. Well, because you were civilizing the barbarian world, that was kind of the thing.
That's a very unwoke thing to say, isn't it?
But you're welcome.
Yeah. I'm very unwoke. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna go to the UK now with the next news item, which is about the definition of Islamophobia, because there is what is regarded by some as a flawed definition for this word, Islamophobia, because it makes it into a sort of a type of racism.
Yeah.
And that is not in line with the Equality Act 2010 in the UK. And there's a new faith minister in our new government who is Wajid Khan. And he is, he's not the faith minister, but he's written to the faith minister from his position as the leader of the network of Sikh organizations. And his position is that adopting this definition of Islamophobia would in fact inflame rather than dispel community tensions and division. I think he's right.
I think he's right, and I'm really pleased. This is a bit of a victory because there's been campaigning against this definition for a long time.
Yes.
We just have to be watched to see what they replace it with, because you never know, it might be worse. But and there's been a series of legal cases which has highlighted the problem. Yes,
indeed. Well, Khan noted in his letter to the government faith minister, he noted that the Equality Act defines race in terms of color, nationality, and national or ethnic origins. But by contrast, Islam is a religion which anyone, regardless of race, color, or ethnic origins, can join up to and sign up to.
Well, but that's only one of the problems. There's other problems about it. Sorry, Dred, you're trying to.
Well, I was just, I've got a problem with this idea that there is even a word like Islamophobia. There isn't Sikhophobia. There isn't Christianophobia. There isn't Buddhistophobia. Like, why is Islam distinct in this way?
Yeah, good question.
That people can be accused of being against Islam by virtue of it being a religion, and not of any other religion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is down to Islamic exceptionalism. They do try to kind of enforce their needs and their views on everybody else. The Sikhs have done a bit of it as well, actually, to be honest. But, I mean, you don't see many others doing it to the extent. And the big problem with Islamophobia, from my perspective, and I've been a victim of being cancelled as a result of this, is that you if you try to criticize or analyze critically Islam, you're immediately dubbed an Islamophobe. Whereas surely the essence should be bigotry against Muslims. That's what that clearly is something we don't want to support. But critical analysis of Islam is vital and really interesting, and I believe there's a lot of future in blowing open the defects of Islam, of which are many, in the interests of liberating Muslims from Islam.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of apostates.
There are growing numbers.
Growing
And
numbers,
I think that the atheist and publicity and the analysis of Islam, which is common, is helping.
Yeah. I mean, we welcome apostates in with noodly arms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Great stuff.
So what they're trying to do is turn themselves into victims by virtue of false racism accusations. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's right. And that's very unhelpful.
Yeah.
But this other point about the critical analysis bit, that needs to be catered for as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, we'll still have problems.
Yeah, indeed. Staying with the UK.
Oh, it's all about the UK today.
It is. So far it is. Yes, yeah. So we have religious education in our schools, statutorily. And unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, depending on your viewpoint, not all schools obey this statutory requirement. So, for example, the National Association of Teachers of Religious Education have done an analysis which found that almost 1 in 6 year 11 students are not taught any RE at all. Although in
what?
RE, religious education.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Although in faith schools, 83% are offered curriculum time in RE. But in the non-religious schools, I mean, believe it or not, we have faith schools in the UK. Oh, I don't want that. Yeah. Compared to in the non-religious schools, only 25% get curriculum time of RE. So there's a big disparity here between the act, the law, which says all students should get it in secondary schools for the whole of their time in that school, and the actual practice where you only get a lot of RE if you're in a faith school compared to in a non-religious school. So the outcome of this research has shown that RE is outdated and unpopular, and 58% of British adults think RE is unimportant in secondary schools, and over half of British adults do not think it's important for RE to be taught at all in secondary schools. What do you think of that?
Well, what does the curriculum consist of? Does it give a broad, education on all kinds of faiths, or is it just different forms
that's
of
a good
Christianity,
question.
or the difference between a Catholic and a Protestant?
It is quite broad, but it doesn't actually. I mean, it is possible for you to go right through school and not learn about humanism, for instance. Right. Although it's supposed to be on the curriculum.
Yeah.
And many schools do it well. They introduce children to all the various main beliefs and philosophies and religions, or a good selection of them. But other schools don't, and it's very interesting because I disagree with the majority of the British population here. I think that students do need to understand something about the beliefs of those people they're going to encounter in their adult life, or even in their
and a broad spectrum, right?
Not to be indoctrinated, obviously, but to be introduced to the bizarre. To be honest, mostly.
Sure, absolutely.
If I, as the only currently practicing educator on the panel, may give my opinion here, if I were to design a curriculum I would not call it religious education. I think that is a problem in itself. And sometimes by just renaming something, one can actually rebrand it. So I agree, religious education should not be used as a term. What I would propose as a curriculum change, is that as part of social studies, as part of history, and perhaps even so I do know that in South Africa we have social studies up to year 9, and from there on there's a specialization in history and geography. So I would in the lower years where there's not a specialization so much to history and geography, I would ensure that there's in social sciences that there's a module that looks at the influence of religion throughout history. And I would make that a strong academic look at how has people's religious beliefs influenced what happened in history. And I would focus on the Renaissance and the Reformation, and then a few and the formation of Islam, Confucianism, but from a purely historical point of view. And then what I would like to see happening worldwide is, instead of having religious education, having critical thinking skills as dedicated
that needs to be taught.
That needs to, and as part of critical thinking skills, one then introduces how does one things like free speech, for example. What does one do for religious? What does one do with immigrants who represent a religious minority? Especially with older children, one can have really interesting discussions on how to navigate the impact and the influence of religion in society.
Right.
But incorporate that as part of a critical thinking skills curriculum. And incorporate what you said, Guy. How does one navigate working with people who have different beliefs, and kids from the ages of 15 to 17, they love having discussions where you have, we have 20 kids in our class. 2 of them are Jewish and they eat kosher food, and 5 of them are Muslim and they eat halal food. Should exceptions be made? Should they have and discuss these things? But don't call it religious education. I really do think it's time to let go of that idea and call it.
Make them all eat spaghetti.
That's right.
Pasta.
Yeah.
Holy pasta.
Teach them all about the different kinds of pasta and
holy pasta. That's right.
Critical cooking skills.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, Tersia. There's a lot needs to be done. I've actually got a daughter at secondary school at the moment, and that particular secondary school, she hasn't yet got to selecting her choice subjects for study towards an exam, but my older one did. And I was distressed to find that everybody was entered for RE compulsorily by their school. And so I talked to the headmaster, or headmistress it was actually, about why this was the case. And she said, well, we're not a faith school, but we want to obey the law. And since RE is a half subject, and it can be an extra GCSE qualification, we put everybody in for it.
Which, depending on what the curriculum tells, is not necessarily bad, but the devil is
I think it would depend entirely on what the curriculum is.
Well, indeed, in this case, it was a polyfaith curriculum, but in my experience, which is historic now, I'm afraid, but I used to be a teacher, and I used to occasionally cover for absent RE teachers, and I looked at the books that they were working from, and there were pages and pages on Christianity, on Muslim or Islam, and some on Hinduism and Sikhism. There was one page on atheism, and I thought that's biased.
It's weighted, for sure. Just as a matter of interest, I'm actually reading Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy, and it is enormously engaging, and learning how, for instance, Christianity, if it wasn't for the Greeks, if it wasn't for Plato, Christianity would not exist in its current form.
Yeah.
It's like true. It's amazing the
Yeah, yeah.
influences that these various things had on
Yeah.
Christianity outside of whatever people believe Jesus to have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it weren't for other influences, we wouldn't have it. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
here.
I actually discovered yesterday that I'm an anti-Platonist.
Yes,
Yeah,
I am too.
I'm an
Because
anti-Platonist too.
I mean, Plato was responsible for these ideal ideas, and
Yes.
that flows directly into sort of divine absolutes.
Yeah.
And belief in things like truth. You know,
Yeah.
truth is a bit of a fantasy. It's an ideal that
Yeah.
you know we have to work towards. It doesn't actually exist in its own right.
Oh, that's right. He thought that thought bosses supersedes trumps. I'm trying to find the right word here.
Hmm.
Observations of nature. That is
Yes.
nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
Yes, and that
course-
set back European thought for 1,000 years, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
We should probably. It would be a good idea to take Trump out of our lexicon.
I was using it with a small t.
Unfortunately, it is commonly used.
Yes,
But
I know.
does it also mean fart?
Yes, it does in German. Yes.
Oh, in German, is it? Oh, right.
Okay.
And of course, his ancestors were German.
Hmm.
Were they?
Just an old fart. He literally is just an old
Yes,
fart.
that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking
Is it Afrikaans for fart as well?
No.
Okay.
We have
Oh.
beautiful word. Boop.
Tersia,
that's very onomatopoeic, isn't it?
Tersia, I just wanted to point out that on the chalkboard behind you, you have the
Yes.
date, but it's the 9th month. We're in the
Oh,
9th month.
It's the
Yeah.
9th.
Right. Let's
Yes.
fix that.
You're right. Yes, it is the 9th month.
Yeah,
Well
I think-
spotted, Fred.
Well, we know you're in a different time zone, but it isn't that different.
I don't know. I think detention is required.
Anyway, sticking with the Trump theme,
Yeah.
the next item is about eating pets.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because weeks after Trump's September the 10th remarks during the ABC News presidential debate,
Oh, yes.
in which he claimed that Haitian immigrants are eating pets in Springfield, Ohio.
Right.
I mean, I love that. I don't know about you, but and I haven't been able to download the Eating Pets song by Tersia will know the name of this comedian who's South African. He's taken Trump's words and musicalized them.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's
I'm gonna
really
check that out.
You can look him up. It's he is the Kiffness, Kiffness. He hails from Cape Town. Brilliant musician. He does sort of funny, but he within
Kiflis?
hours. Kiffness.
It's a TikTok. So
okay.
I will put the link to it in
Oh, yeah. Please put the link. Yeah.
in the details underneath. Anyway, on Sunday, the 22nd of September, some 60 faith leaders gathered outside Springfield's Greater Grace Temple to welcome the Reverend William Barber II. Don't you love the way Americans like to have what you might call regal, monarchal descriptions to their names? Anyway, this particular reverend was invited by the city clergy to push back against former President Trump and Vice President hopeful J.D. Vance's campaign messages about the Haitian immigrants in the city. And they were saying in their address, do not reject God by rejecting your Haitian neighbor. And it said, take your lies, take your foot, take your oppression, take your distortion off the back of our immigrant brothers and sisters. How about that?
Nice.
Wow.
I mean, you know, people have been questioning whether Trump's state of mind is deteriorating. I don't know. I mean, I didn't think it was brilliant to begin with, to be honest.
No.
Yeah.
I just, what worries, what I think many commentators also say is the extremely, it's funny. I mean, he's hilariously funny, but what's not funny is the fact that there are so many people who have bought into this idea that if you just
Yeah.
repeat something enough,
Yeah.
it becomes the
Yeah.
truth. And
Right.
while I don't prescribe to the truth, there is value to things being accurate or things not being accurate.
Yes.
And the dilemma that I think Americans and Christians have is that Donald Trump claims to be sent by Jesus to rescue America.
Yeah.
And James Vance and the Republicans are Christian fundamentalists. So how are they going to resolve this split? Because Trump claims to be a Christian, and it's not for me to say that he's not a Christian if he claims to be a Christian. So I think that's one of the reasons why I deconverted, is the fact that Christianity is so split up and so divided, much more so. I know there are sects within Judaism, there are sects within every religion, but no religion is more sected, dissected than Christianity.
That's right. There's about, I don't know, 30 or is it 300 denominations of Christianity?
You know, Christianity is the Baskin Robbins of religion.
Who? What?
The Baskin Robbins of religion. You know, they got so many flavors of ice cream. Baskin Robbins. Oh, you never heard of them?
That must be a Canadian thing.
That's their thing. They have so many flavors.
We have Tom and Jerry. No, that's not right, is it?
Jerry.
Ben and Jerry.
Ben and Jerry, but that's an American thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Anyway, Tersia, you're right to be concerned, because the claim of eating pets has prompted the arrival of hate groups and a flurry of bomb threats to the city of Springfield, because there's that many nutters around.
Yeah, and it was actually started by a white supremacist group, that whole rumor.
Yeah.
And then it just promulgated through Trump and his...
Trump jumped on it.
The bad news for the good Christians who came together to say, don't abuse our immigrant population. The bad news for them is that the hate groups claim to pray to the same God, and they claim to make their pronouncements based on exactly the same scripture. So that, to me, that makes it very difficult, because they can't all be right.
No.
The Christians who say that immigrants are bad, and the Christians who say let's protect our immigrant brothers and sisters, they can't both be right.
No.
So the only option is that they can be wrong. Both those Christians can be wrong.
Yeah.
And while I agree with the Christians who don't preach hate, while I agree with them, their own source code undermines what they are saying.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. So going to the UK again, we've got some charities, Islamic charities, that have been referred to the official watchdog because of sermons that they have conducted, which, according to campaigners, excused rape and domestic violence. Mm-hmm. So one of these was the Al-Nur Masjid in Birmingham, and another one was the Mohammadi Masjid in Bradford. And they have held talks. The one in Birmingham was called Detailed Rulings on Marriage, which says that a man can hit and shake his wife if she refuses to have sex with him. And the one in Bradford suggested that women who do not wear a hijab are influenced by Satan and cannot refuse their husband's sex. Notice there's a lot of sex in this.
Yeah. This has been an ongoing problem, but the interesting thing is that somebody is now reporting it.
Yes.
That's to me is the hopeful sign. And I mean, I do think that these charities and these preachers actually they all need to be policed, because a percentage of them constantly come out with homophobic and misogynist and imperialist ideas, you know, which are really problematic. And they you know, it's freedom of speech, but they should not be getting charitable status, which it has advantages.
And the head of campaigns at the National Secular Society, a woman called Megan Manson, said the patriarchal ideology spouted by these preachers can inspire misogyny, discrimination, and violence against women.
Yeah.
Do we want that?
No. And I think there's a limit to freedom of speech protection for that kind of insightful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's very difficult, the freedom of speech issue. I certainly think they should not be getting tax advantages through being charitable if they're going to be doing this kind of you know, religious preaching. The question then, you know, it's very difficult to then say, well, you can't have those views, you can't say anything like that. And I think that the line has to be drawn very carefully against incitement to violence. I think is probably the where the line should be.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one, because we've got hate speech law in this country, and if you say something that's slightly offensive to somebody, you know, you could find yourself.
And it's hard because, like, for instance, in Canada here, I'm not allowed to wear my tricorn in my photographs by virtue of the fact that I've been declared a member of a group that satirizes and mocks religious beliefs, whether that is a big deal or whatever, but that the protection for religious belief doesn't extend to me by virtue of that.
Well, we want
people are drawing the lines in the sand here all over the place.
Well, that's interesting, Dred, because if they're going to exclude your religion, inverted commas, then on the grounds of that kind of judgment, then I would have thought that the same sort of judgments need to be applied across the board, and in particular
absolutely
to Islam and extreme Jewish and other sects.
Who,
you know,
there's a cognitive dissonance in government for sure,
and extreme cults and Christian bodies as well.
On what grounds are they discriminating between your religion and these other religions?
Exactly.
So on that subject, still
very interesting.
There's Charlie Weimers. I think he's Dutch or maybe Danish. I think he's Danish. He's an MEP, and he made a speech in which he said, "You've been warned about Islam, Sharia, halal, Islamic charities and finance, and halal food that funds terrorism and the death of Europe and the UK." And he said this on video, and I had a link to it, but when I went back to grab it, it had been taken down.
This is a problem, isn't it? Because the Muslims and also their sort of lefty colleagues, you know, are very active, and it is bizarre what the left are doing. I mean, we at Manchester Pride last month, one of our humanists, I bumped into him. He wasn't marching with us. He was marching with a group called Queers for Palestine. I thought, you've got to be joking, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Let's send the queers to Palestine and see how they like it.
Yeah,
see how long they last.
Yeah, exactly.
Subject them to Sharia law for a while.
Yeah, they'd have a lifetime of minutes. Yeah. So I've got some good news, though, because I think you'll like this. an estimated 180,000 motorcyclists gathered on Sunday at the Our Lady of Fatima shrine in central Portugal for the 9th annual pilgrimage of the blessing of helmets.
Okay.
There you go.
I think it'd be interesting to actually record all their names and follow them up in 1, 2, and 5 years to see how many had died as a result of.
Well, yeah. That's what the sermon was about. They were saying commiserations. I'm not sure what the wording was, to those who are departed, many of them through accidents.
Yes, well, they are.
Yeah. And I'm now going to play you a video, which, well, I'd just like to see your reaction to this. Take a look at this.
I went to a little place in Kentucky, and I taught on a Friday night. I think it was a Friday night, and I was talking about the courts of heaven. Well, the next day when we came back Saturday morning, they began to tell me that there had been a man there the night before that was now in the hospital, and that had suddenly, for some unforeseen reason, had some kind of a condition that had caused his fever to go so high that the doctors were literally afraid it was going to cook his brain. And that and whatever they were trying, nothing was working to bring the fever down. And so they said, well, could you pray? And maybe even from a court of heaven perspective. So I began to pray, just kind of actually fumbling around, trying to figure out what would be the proper way to pray. And all of a sudden, another person in attendance at that conference said, I need to tell you something. He said, that man that is in that condition has been a lifelong Democrat. And we have tried to convince him that he is in agreement with the spirit of death because of his vote. Do you understand that when you vote, you come into agreement with spirits? You come into an agreement with spirits. So you need to make sure your vote is connecting you to the right thing in the spirit world. So they told me he was a Democrat, and that there had been people in the church that had tried to convince him how wrong he was about being a Democrat and voting just consistently that way, and that the Democrats stood for abortion and every other evil thing that you could possibly imagine. But it didn't matter what they told him. He was stubborn and he wouldn't give in. So I'm standing there and I'm suddenly realizing his vote has connected him to a spirit of death that is claiming the legal right to take him out. So how many of you know this? We actually, according to 1 John 5:16, we have a right to come into the courts of heaven and represent things before God. The Bible literally says there that if you see one sinning a sin not unto death, you can ask life and God will give them life. You are standing as a representative, even as an advocate in connection with Jesus. You are standing in that place. And the Bible says your prayers can cause somebody to move out of death and into life. And so I, realizing that, just began to pray. I said, Lord, I'm here under the authority of those that are here. And as I come, I repent in behalf of this man that is on the edge of death and his brain being cooked. And I'm asking you, would you just cause grace and mercy to be released to him? I am asking you, as one who is sending God. How many of you remember that God said that God spared Lot for what? Abraham's sake. That you have rights to come into the court of heaven and do these things. So I prayed this prayer and I asked for healing. I am not joking. 5 minutes after we finished that prayer, someone that was connected to the situation got the call and said his fever just broke. And the man was spared and he was back at the services the next day. But I want you to hear this. His vote connected him to something in the spirit world that had to be undone. Now, hopefully he repented. Hopefully he's a good, solid Republican now.
Wow, that was harsh. Holy, wow.
Yeah. Wow. It's the only
I was under
response.
the impression, I was under the impression that it wasn't legal for churches to have that types of broadcasts or conversations.
Well, yes,
How,
it's
how, the way I have always understood the church-state barrier in the United States, it seems the wall has fallen.
Well, yeah, in certain places for sure.
But
It's interesting that religiosity is on the decline in North America. Equally in the States and Canada, and yet they're taking a more feverish stance to buttress what they've got left and try to make it something that everyone has to endure. You've seen the Project 2025 stuff. Like, holy crap.
Yeah,
We could have a whole episode on that one.
Yeah. It's a rearguard reaction, isn't it, that they're trying to fight right now?
Yeah.
I said this on a Facebook post on an Afrikaans Facebook page this week, and I'll say it here again, and I think I've said it in the past as well. I think we should not make too much of the fact that statistically and as far as census information is concerned, religiosity is declining. That may be so, but I don't think that we should in any way think that that's necessarily a good thing, because as long as people are ignorant and uneducated, as long as anybody believes in such a thing as a spirit and a spirit world, we have big because
I agree.
One can be irreligious,
Yes,
but hold the belief in
true.
the spirit
This
world.
is true. This is true.
And that's dangerous.
Yes.
And that is something that concerns me about statistics that say that religiosity is on the decline. Maybe, paradoxically, it is better, the question I ask on this page is, if I have a choice, if my two choices are religious people who adhere to something like the British, what is it? What's your church?
Anglican.
The Anglican Church, or even cultural Catholics. Let's say if my options are nominal Christians who are sort of, I believe in God and I go to church every once in a while and I go for a wedding and I have a baptism, and the other choice is I have people who believe in things like spirits and spirit realm and spirit world, and that they are creatures or beings, whatever you want to call them, that have that we can't see and hear and feel, but they have an influence in this life. I'd much rather go for the for the nominal Catholics. And
Well,
and I think we need to.
Yeah, Tersia, can I just mention that yesterday we were doing a humanist bookstall in Manchester, in the main street in the centre of Manchester, and we had two black African young men come up and say that we were controlled by demons, being atheists. So this idea of the spirit world, is very real, particularly in Africa, and I wonder where they get it from, or where they're encouraged to have it from.
Well, sadly, I have to. I'm not trying to protect Christianity here, but I think the idea of the spirit world is older than Christianity. But it is very strongly infused in the African culture, and Christianity hasn't helped dispel those ideas. I mean,
No.
some of my family members have an absolute belief in the spirit realm.
Yeah, same here.
And these are not stupid people. These are people with university degrees. I'm talking programmers, mechanical engineers, doctors,
Yeah.
medical, who believe that there is such a thing as the spirit realm.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that is something that really, really worries me, because the fact that people are no longer religious in the traditional sense doesn't mean that they don't hold these beliefs. And that's dangerous. And in my country, it's particularly dangerous. John, I see we're full on time. I actually brought something with. Sorry, I want to show you if there's time. Just
okay. Can I just finish the spirit realm stuff, because all of my relatives except 2 are now dead. So presumably they're already in the spirit realm. It's just that I haven't heard anything from them since.
Yeah.
Tersia, go for it.
No, I just wanted to show you guys this. This is a copy of the biggest Afrikaans magazine in South Africa, and the 2 main stories on the front page of this magazine. I mean, this is a big magazine. It concerns a charismatic pastor, so it's this one, a charismatic pastor who gets messages from God that he has to this wife and marry another woman in the congregation. And
that happened to Muhammad.
Yeah.
This chap gets it all the time. He gets messages, and then he's told that this wife is not good for him anymore because she's coming. He's coming, and also of course money. So there's a massive family feud going on now because there's a family with lots of money, and so there's a split up there. But the other story concerns me a little bit more, because the second story, so this one, concerns the headmaster of one of the most prestigious Afrikaans high schools in Pretoria, who has now been placed on leave to investigate whether he's suitable to be a principal, because he has been baptizing children in his office. He has, so he preaches to children, and there's also a big strife in the school community now, because some parents are so supportive of this principal that they feel that he shouldn't have been temporarily removed from his post. That they had prayer sessions, and so we had our school holidays now, so there hasn't been school. So on the first Sunday of the school holidays, children arrived in their school uniforms with their parents to form a prayer circle around the school to pray for this brilliant school headmaster who does such good work by baptizing children in his office. And this is not a private school. It's not a religious school. This is one of the oldest and most prestigious Afrikaans high schools in my country. So what do you say to that?
Well, there you go. Yeah. So if I was to have a god, he would definitely support philandering.
Hey, the noodly one, bring it on. He's got big meaty balls. Got big meaty balls.
I just always wonder about these partners who come between. So one of the claims that this pastor made was his wife came between him and God, and I thought, sure, so she
is that a threesome?
I don't know.
I think
we know that God should always come first.
I think we better leave that. On that note, guys, thank you very much. It's been wonderful. I've loved having this show.
All right.
Yes.
See you next time. Say
Take
goodbye.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carry-on drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys?